The most sacred lie you tell yourself is that you are not enough. This unworthiness, this beautiful wound you carry like a crown, is not your cross to bear. It is your cage. And the bars are made of gold, so you mistake your prison for a palace. You cling to people who barely see you, chase dreams that were never yours, and bow before altars built by hands that have forgotten your name. Why? Because somewhere in the marrow of your being, you believe you must earn what was always yours by birthright. Love, respect, the right to exist without apology. This unworthiness is not humility. It is not virtue. It is the invisible chain that keeps you circling the same barren ground, hoping that if you suffer enough, if you sacrifice enough, if you shrink enough, someone, somewhere, will finally declare you worthy of the life you're already living. But what if I told you that your unworthiness is the very thing that makes you cling? What if the feeling that you are not enough is precisely what creates your desperate attachment to everything outside yourself? What if every relationship you've held onto too tightly, every job you've begged to keep, every friendship you've contorted yourself to maintain, what if all of it stems from this single devastating belief that you are somehow fundamentally flawed? The unworthy person becomes a collector of external validations, a hoarder of borrowed worth. They accumulate achievements like armor, relationships like shields, possessions like proof of their right to exist. But no amount of external validation can fill the hole that was never really there. From the moment you drew breath, they began the surgery. Not with scalpels, but with words. Be good. Don't be selfish. Think of others first. You're not special. Each phrase a small incision, each lesson a thread pulled from the fabric of your natural worthiness. They taught you to apologize for taking up space, to say sorry before speaking your truth, to make yourself smaller so others could feel larger. They called this love, they called this virtue, they called this being a good person. But what they really taught you was to be a ghost in your own life, present but not quite there, visible but not quite seen, alive but not quite living. They taught you that your needs were secondary, your dreams were selfish, your voice was too loud, your light was too bright. Your parents, drowning in their own unhealed wounds, passed down the only legacy they knew, the belief that love must be earned through suffering. Your teachers, trapped in systems that reward conformity over creativity, taught you to color inside lines that were never meant for your particular shade of brilliance. Your religious leaders, terrified of the divine spark within you that might make their authority obsolete, convinced you that you were born broken and could only be fixed through their prescribed salvation. And so you learned the mathematics of unworthiness, that your value equals what you produce, that your worth equals what you achieve, that your right to love equals how much pain you can endure without complaint. You learned to measure your existence by external metrics, to weigh your soul on scales that were designed to find you wanting. You learned to love what hurts you because hurt feels familiar. You learned to stay where you are not celebrated because celebration feels dangerous. You learned to beg for crumbs when you were born to feast because the feast felt too large for someone like you. This is the architecture of attachment. The belief that you must earn what is already yours creates the desperate need to cling to anyone who throws you scraps of recognition. The unworthy person attaches not out of love but out of terror. Terror that if they let go, they will be alone with the crushing weight of their own perceived inadequacy. But here's what they never told you. That feeling of unworthiness you carry? It's not yours. It's inherited trauma passed down through generations like cursed heirlooms. It's the accumulated shame of ancestors who were told they were too much or not enough, who swallowed their light to survive, who learned to make themselves invisible to avoid persecution. Your grandmother, who bit her tongue when her dreams were dismissed as foolish fantasies. Your grandfather, who worked himself to death trying to prove he deserved the love that should have been freely given. Your mother, who apologized for her ambitions until they withered like flowers in winter. Your father, who learned that vulnerability was weakness and strength was silence. Each generation passed down not wisdom, but wounds. Not empowerment, but the careful art of self-diminishment. They taught you to duck when life threw opportunities, your way to question every good thing that came to you, to search for the catch in every gift. They handed you a legacy of suspicion toward your own joy, a deep distrust of your own deservingness. This is the invisible inheritance, the belief that you must pay for everything twice, once with effort, once with suffering. That pleasure must be earned through pain, that success must be balanced with sacrifice, that love must be purchased with the currency of your own diminishment. You learn to count the cost of your own happiness as if joy were a debt that would someday come due. Ancient Greeks spoke of hubris, the dangerous pride that leads to downfall, but they never spoke of its shadow, the dangerous unworthiness that leads to spiritual death. For what is hubris but the fear of unworthiness turned inside out? What is arrogance but the costume worn by those who cannot bear their own perceived inadequacy? The Buddha saw attachment as the root of suffering, but he also saw deeper. Attachment arises from the illusion of separateness, from the belief that you are somehow cut off from the source of all life. When you believe you are unworthy, you believe you are separate. When you believe you are separate, you grasp for connection like a drowning person grasps for driftwood. But you are not drowning. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave, the sun pretending to be a shadow, the infinite pretending to be finite. Your unworthiness is not a fact, it is a story, and stories can be rewritten. The mystics knew this. They spoke of the divine, spark within, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the eternal soul that cannot be diminished by any earthly judgment. They knew that worthiness is not earned, it is recognized, not achieved, it is remembered. Nietzsche understood that we must become who we are, not who we think we should be. He saw that most people live as shadows of themselves, afraid to claim their full power because they've been convinced that power corrupts. But power doesn't corrupt. Powerlessness corrupts. Unworthiness corrupts. The belief that you don't deserve what you want corrupts you into becoming someone who settles for what you don't want. Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject and project onto others. But what if the greatest shadow is not our darkness but our light? What if the thing we most desperately hide from the world is not our unworthiness but our incredible, undeniable cosmic worth? The philosophers of old understood that the examined life is worth living, but they forgot to mention that most people are too afraid to examine their lives because they're terrified of what they might find. Not darkness, but blinding light. Not inadequacy, but overwhelming adequacy. Not brokenness, but a wholeness so complete it makes their current life seem like a pale shadow of what's possible. There is another way to live. There is a virtue born not from emptiness seeking to be filled, but from fullness seeking to overflow. A virtue that loves not because it needs, but because it cannot help but give. Imagine moving through the world like the sun, not asking the flowers if they deserve light, not questioning whether the earth has earned another dawn. The sun gives because giving is its nature. It shines because shining is what suns do. It doesn't dim itself because some prefer darkness, doesn't apologize for its heat because some prefer cold. This is the virtue of the worthy, to love without condition, to give without calculation, to exist without apology. When you know your worth, truly know it, not as concept but as lived reality, you no longer cling to anything or anyone. You cannot possess what you already are. You cannot lose what was never separate from you. The worthy person walks differently. They do not shrink into corners or expand to fill every room. They simply take up their exact amount of space, no more, no less. They speak when they have something to say, and rest in silence when they don't. They love fiercely, but without desperation, because they know that love given freely returns multiplied, while love grasped tightly turns to ash in the palm. This worthy person does not attract people who need to be needed. They attract people who are also whole, also complete, also worthy, and together they create not codependence but co-creation, not attachment but sacred relationship. When you embody your worthiness, you become like water, finding its level, naturally flowing toward what nourishes you and naturally flowing away from what depletes you. No force required, no drama necessary. just the simple physics of a soul that knows its value. The worthy person gives because they overflow, not because they're trying to fill a hole. They receive because they're open, not because they're desperate. They love because they are love, not because they need to be loved. This is the great reversal. When you stop seeking worthiness, you discover you are worthiness itself. But this virtue is not what you think. It's not about becoming better or more spiritual or more enlightened. It's about stripping away everything that is not essentially you until what remains is so purely, authentically you that the universe has no choice but to recognize itself in your face. The worthy person is dangerous to systems built on scarcity because they prove that abundance is the natural state. They are threatening to those who profit from your insecurity because they demonstrate that security comes from within. They are disturbing to those who cling because they show what it looks like to hold everything lightly while possessing everything fully. Watch how the worthy person moves through conflict. They do not fight to be right, but they refuse to pretend they are wrong. They do not argue their value, but they will not accept treatment that suggests they have none. They understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from those who cannot see your worth, not in anger, but in the quiet certainty that your presence is a gift that should be treasured, not tolerated. The worthy person has learned the secret that the marketplace of souls doesn't want you to know, that your value is not determined by demand. You are not more valuable when others want you and less valuable when they don't. You are not a commodity whose price fluctuates with the opinions of others. You are priceless, not because others have decided you are precious, but because pricelessness is your natural state. This worthy person understands that they are both the artist and the masterpiece, both the author and the story, both the seeker and what is sought. They have stopped auditioning for a life they already own, stopped interviewing for a position they already hold, stopped asking permission to be who they have always been. But even this beautiful worthiness, this luminous self-knowledge must die. Even the worthy must learn the art of disappearing, for there comes a time when you must let go of even your worthiness, when you must release even your most sacred truths and step into the silence that exists before and after all stories. There comes a time when you must become so empty that not even unworthiness can find a place to land. This is the wisdom of winter, that all growth requires periods of dormancy, that all creation emerges from destruction, that all birth begins in darkness. The soul that has learned its worth must also learn to release its grip on that worth, must learn to float in the space between being someone and being no one. The mystics called this the dark night of the soul, but they were wrong. It's not dark. It's transparent. It's not night. It's the moment before dawn when the sky is neither dark nor light but something altogether other. In this space you discover that worthiness and unworthiness are both costumes worn by the same eternal presence. Here, in this sacred emptiness, you find that you are both everything and nothing, both the wave and the ocean, both the flame and the space in which it burns. You discover that attachment was never about holding on to things. It was about holding on to the story of being the kind of person who needs to hold on to things. The mature soul knows when to claim its power and when to surrender it, when to speak its truth and when to rest in mystery, when to shine like the sun and when to disappear like the moon at dawn. They understand that true strength is not in never falling, but in falling with such grace that even gravity applauds. This disappearing is not defeat. It is the ultimate victory. For only those who can let go of everything, including their own spiritual achievements, can truly possess anything. Only those who can die while living can be truly born. In the silence, between breaths, between thoughts, between heartbeats, you find the place where you have always been worthy, where you have always been enough, where you have always been exactly what the universe ordered when it dreamed you into existence. This is not philosophy. This is physics. This is not poetry. This is the fundamental law of existence. You are not an accident that needs to justify its presence. You are a miracle that needs only to recognize its own magnificence. If these words have stirred something ancient in your chest, If they have awakened the sleeping giant of your own worthiness, then do not let this moment pass like smoke. Do not let this recognition fade into another pretty idea that changes nothing. Write in the comments below, I release the need to earn what is already mine. Let this be your declaration, your line drawn in the sand of your own becoming. Let this be the moment you stop begging for permission to exist and start living as if your presence is the gift the world has been waiting for. But know this, the moment you claim your worthiness, everything will resist you. The voice in your head will scream that you're being arrogant, that you're setting yourself up for disappointment, that you're not special enough to deserve what you're claiming. The people around you who have grown comfortable with your smallness will try to shrink you back down to manageable size. This is not persecution. This is initiation. This is the universe testing whether you really mean it, whether you're ready to live in the kingdom of your own worthiness, or whether you'll retreat back to the familiar dungeon of not enough. And if you hunger for more of this medicine, if you crave more mirrors that reflect your true face back to you, then continue this journey. Seek out the words that wake you up rather than the ones that put you to sleep. Surround yourself with voices that call forth your greatness rather than your smallness. Read the mystics who dared to claim their divinity. Study the philosophers who refused to bow to lesser truths. Learn from the artists who painted their visions despite being told they were impossible. Follow the path of those who chose to be dangerous in their authenticity rather than safe in their conformity. Remember, you are not here to earn your place at the table. You are here to build your own table and invite others to feast. You are not here to prove your worthiness. You are here to live it so fully that others remember their own. The illusion of unworthiness dissolves not through argument, but through embodiment. Not through thinking, but through being. Not through becoming worthy, but through remembering that you always were. Go now. Walk differently. Love differently. Exist differently. Let your very presence be a rebellion against every voice that ever told you that you were not enough. The world needs your worthiness more than it needs your wounds. Give us that gift. Give yourself that gift. The sun does not doubt its right to shine. The river does not apologize for its depth. The mountain does not ask permission to touch the sky, neither should you.